My guest founded a New York City-based public relations firm that focuses on providing expert services to its clients, specializing in traditional public relations, social media and digital advertising, company and personal branding, website development, and crisis management. I'm here with the CEO and founder of Herald PR, Warren H. Cohn. Thanks for joining us here, Warren.
Thank you so much for having me today, Jorge.
Hey, my pleasure. Glad to have you. So I want to go and take the interview that we're going to be putting out over a couple of parts for the Broadcasters podcast. I want to take it into two different categories. First, I want to talk about influencer marketing and social influencing, the idea of the branding and using influencers versus celebrities to be brought on for brands. And then I want to go ahead and jump in later on to talk about crisis management, which you've had a lot of experience to your team throughout. We'll go ahead and talk about that pretty extensively later on. But first, let me go ahead and point our listeners to a 2019 Forbes article that you wrote. And you said, quote, "In today's day and age, social influencing can be misconstrued as young adults who post product reviews and photos for likes online, but don't get it twisted. These influencers could be the key to bringing your company or brand big business in the coming year. Typically, an online influencer has built an online community, large and small, through various social platforms surrounding their niche topic. As an influencer works to create relationships through authenticity, their online community not only continues to grow, but members begin to place trust in any brand recommendations or product endorsements the influencer may have. This allows the influencer to represent control of an audience segment that is important to your business. So regardless of how you define or view a social influencer, one thing is clear: an influencer has the power to influence or persuade an audience," end quote. So talk to me about your firm's work in influencer marketing and, you know, how it's worked for you, because obviously I see that transition as well, that there is a lot more appeal for influencers to be brought in to a particular segment to try to reach an audience that might not be tapped through traditional or established routes.
Well, I have to start off by saying that initially, and that article, goes back a year and even a couple of years before that. um, I was geared and focused more. I've always been more focused on micro influencers or nano influencers because of if because of the trackability and the analytics behind it. So what I'm saying is I used to have a fly swatter towards influencers. We'd be pitching reporters, we'd pitch people in the blogosphere, and then they would respond back, "Oh, well, for X amount of dollars, I can introduce you to this influencer." And as we saw it growing, I was hesitant because we're in earned media and public relations. Initially was hesitant because I didn't want to say, "Hey, client, pay us X amount a month for us to get you opportunities," and then get earned media, and then, "Hey, here's another bill," or "Here's another thing." But as time has progressed from the 2016-17 range to now, we find that more and more clients want us to be presenting those opportunities to them, and if it's the right opportunity, they're willing to pay for it. What I meant earlier about focusing on nano or micro influencers and why I really believe in that is because influencers, think about the word, have influence. And if I always use the example with clients. You can give Kim Kardashian $1 million for something, and most likely it will get likes, it'll get shares, maybe you'll get some articles out of it. But does she connect, or does that particular influencer connect with the target audience and target market, and will they convert sales? In around 2017, I actually invested in a company called Shopper, and they were based out of Israel. They were built around the nano influencer market. I think they were a little bit too early to market, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
lost. They didn't have enough infusion to really build, but they had an amazing platform that was purchased obviously under value by someone else when they were closing up shop. But their whole idea was, if Jorge or Warren post something to their network, there was a trackable link. So I would get a link from Amazon, just like on YouTube, if the affiliate links. So, but they made everything into an affiliate link, and you were able to track and then have a dashboard of what that influencer, the sales through for that influencer, and what they were actually delivering for you as far as ROI, and therefore pay them based on that. And therefore you were creating a real market, unlike the market that exists today, which is this is my appearance fee, this is my post fee, which I thought then and still now is sometimes exorbitant, because it's hard to tie the results to it.
When you are looking to bring on clients or those that might be approachable, where is the most appealing place to find an influencer? Would it be more YouTube or TikTok, or which platforms are you looking at that are much more viable to find those influencers now than others?
It really depends on the client. We serve clients in the corporate and executive leadership space. That them we might find an influencer on LinkedIn or somebody in that space. If it's more of a consumer product or a jewelry line, we've certain or health and wellness. We've done a lot in that space, which doesn't usually mesh well with crisis, but we do both of those. And enjoy that space. With that, it's more TikTok, Instagram, a little bit of Snapchat early on, but that has other uses. And in the mommy world, certainly Facebook, because that's the mommy groups. And again, I don't need a famous influencer. I can find a mommy who has 1,500 followers who has who can make an impactful sale there or a recommendation, and boom, there catches like wildfire. But also bloggers. There's plenty of bloggers who have a decent amount of followers, and we'll look at them as well.
And that's one thing, is that when it comes to marketing, there is the area where some people might go and use the affiliate marketing is always taken that space where they've worked on particular nano spaces or just somebody that's very hyper local or hyper regional to what you're looking for, but then also to kind of create this where you can put somebody up in front of a product or a brand. One thing this is where I think is very important to me, and it's just a direct question that I don't write up on when I do a show like this and prep for it, but I thought this was a question I think would be absolutely crucial to where I'm coming from. When it comes to the evolution, the digital disruption, I talk about this all the time, when it comes to the effect of how the corporate media establishment, the entertainment establishment are crumbling, and they are falling, they're struggling so badly to have people stop from cutting the cord, to have people stop from, not buying CDs or cassettes and having everything being digital so you could just subscribe or you could download albums and all that kind of stuff. And see that with television, trying to keep people to watch on television as opposed to streaming. Now, do you see the times are changing to where the value of an influencer's reach to a large audience is now a more viable option than it is where the establishment wants to go through an agency, studios, managers, and push a large upfront fees to bring a famous person or celebrity on board that was made through an established medium?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that influencers are the disruptor of that, of a typical ad campaign at agency. I have seen, and we've seen in the industry, I'm sure you've seen that more and more folks are that are successful influencers or those rising rising star influencers are starting to get agents and managers, or at least someone to help coordinate everything. But certainly, I think that's a more direct channel. And again, when with content being more, and ads being on Roku, Apple TV, smart TV channels, and those streaming devices, you can target your audiences a lot better than the widespread blank, throwing shit at a wall of, national, television. And I think that it's certainly moving in the direction of that. And I do think, again, I criticize influencers back in the day, but I definitely think that if you target correctly, like you said, if it's regional or national, and you find the right person to drive sales or awareness for your brand, that I think that it's definitely moving in that direction, and I think it'll only continue to grow.
And I'm seeing the stars that are going on the different platforms now, and celebrities that during the pandemic have learned to integrate themselves into different platforms. There's that to be said. Plus, the biggest example of a failure of celebrities trying to create a brand or product, Quibi. Look at that. Fell apart in 8 months.
Billions, yep.
$2 billion in investment. I'm sure you know some people that were probably part of this, and a lot of movie studios and a lot of big companies. They went by Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman with a lot of credit. I give them a lot, but look at that. That kind of money can go into that, but then I can see others that can bring millions of dollars another way. Like, why? When you see something like that, I wouldn't want to go and go that route either. That just takes that right there alone this year in 2020 makes me say that a celebrity, their value has plummeted.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think so. And I, you know what, again, I started my first business, Herald PR, at 24. and I know I'm in, public relations and digital, but I consider myself an entrepreneur. Any entrepreneur, any startup founder, you have to be hungry. You have to have drive. You have to, find ways, to get, $1 million for $100,000. So to be able to directly go to influencers that can, help drive awareness and traffic to your business as a startup founder it evens the playing field in many ways.
It's amazing just the people that are able to get the kind of institutional money, and where the institutional money doesn't want to put it into projects that can grow. They just want to try to go to something they think is going to be is a sure thing. And there we go. Sure thing, not even close, but there you go. Now, Exchange for Media, they recently wrote this. Quote, industry players say with the heralding of the festive season, brands will look to create influencer marketing campaigns, and PR firms will be key in vetting of influencers. According to the World PR Report for 2020, influencer marketing will witness an upsurge in PR investment, followed by multimedia content creation. And according to a recent survey by influencer marketing platform Zefmo, nearly 92% of marketers will return to influencer marketing campaigns this year. This brings in a huge market indicator. So the obvious question is how PR firms are fulfilling brands' need for influencer marketing, and why are brands betting on their PR firms for more engagement and value creation? How do you answer that question, Warren?
So first, I'll say that we have relationships with some influencer marketing agencies where that's their sole focus and specialization, and they're very good at what they do. So they're pre-pandemic, there were times where we would outsource to them. But again, over time, as I always say with advertising, if I give $60,000 to the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, I can, get ad copy for $1,000 and they'll place my ad. So the same thing, I can reach out to an influencer if I'm targeting them, and if I have the right budget and the right product, boom. But with that said, especially during the pandemic now, while there's plenty of opportunities as far as marketing and advertising goes, but I think overall people are hesitant, fearful, and pulling back budgets. So they're leaning on public relations firms or agencies that they trust and they're already working with to vet and to to engage influencers. And I think that will continue to grow. We're happy to do that for clients, and we do that more often now. But again, it's about targeting. Like for instance, we had a sunglass company that was kind of like Oakley's, based in Alabama, the Gulf Coast of Florida, Texas, Louisiana. Now, we're not going to reach out to a Kim Kardashian. We're not going to reach out to, sorry, Kim, I keep using her, but we're not going to reach out to a big influencer.
We're not going to Duck Dynasty or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're going to find someone who might be smaller, who's more affordable, who's in the local market, who who hangs out in the Gulf Coast or is in a country band or has some influence like that. So we're very selective, and we choose, just like we pick media outlets for clients, that we think will, affect their bottom line. We do the same thing, with influencers. And again, I think that, again, I was hesitant in the past, but I've opened up, my feelings for it, to reflect our client needs and desires. And I think the pandemic has certainly poured some gasoline on that right now.
And really, I wanted to bring up that Exchange for Media article because, again, how PR firms are driving influencer marketing for brands. I thought it was a great article. And again, I want to take one more thing from there. I just wanted to point that out for listeners if you want to go look for it. More from the article, the democratization of branding and marketing space due to the rise of digital media began in the early years of the last decade, say experts. Quote, with the world pivoting more and more towards digital, these content creators have a head start in their digital reach and engagement. With the shrinking size of newsrooms, there's an opportunity for influencers to produce engaging content. That's from Archana Jain, who is Managing Director and CEO of PR Pundit. She also says, quote, influencers are very accomplished and publishing attractive photo and video features. The world is snacking on video content at present, and influencers make snackable, bite-sized content almost effortlessly. Shorter attention spans make this very effective for new product announcements, for reviews, and for do-it-yourself guidance. They're able to grab the attention of readers, adding a layer of relatability and authenticity. So do you see a time where influencers will make the need for celebrities extinct? Do you think that's where we're going to go?
I mean, look, reality television has grown tremendously, and a lot of networks have pivoted toward, again, I know that we're talking about them dying, but over the last 20 years, we've pivoted towards reality television because they were cheaper for the networks, but they still get great ratings and can sell ads off the backs of them. And then obviously 10 years in, then they become a celebrity and they're worthwhile. But the answer is I could see that happening. I think we'll still have celebrities, not like, the Queen and princes and royalty in England, because I always, say that our celebrities in the US and gossip columns are similar to that. But I definitely see that, it evening the playing field and creating opportunities for a lot of people who are, who have influence and market. But I also, if I may say that as a PR person, there are times when PR and the influencers overlap. Snackable and consumable content is fantastic. We do have shorter attention spans. There's so much content and so many platforms out there. But there are times, and we've had clients where we've brought on an influencer and it makes the PR job easy. You just get a splashy story in Page 6 or TMZ, and then it goes viral from there. And then again, it comes full circle. It goes back into the digital sphere and, through going viral on digital and social. But I certainly think that I don't think we'll lose celebrities anytime soon as far as having that mega influence, but I definitely think that influencers are gaining a foothold.
What I'm saying by that is I think that the level of fame and the level of popularity, it's not going to be as fever pitch as it once was. I don't think we're going to have that box office, just that real, the person that's going to be on that marquee really that stands out much anymore. Because I think talent, it will just bring the room up for talent now, as opposed to stardom or popularity. I think that's what happens. I think we're getting a lack of those kind of stars that can have the kind of star power to drive, people to go to the theaters to go watch a show or to watch a movie or to watch a TV series. I just don't think that's, even with network TV, that's what you were talking about when we're talking about reality TV shows clouding the lineup throughout the 2000s. But what happened as well is that network shows were still able to go and bring on certain stars, and even cable shows would bring on actors that had a very good pedigree beforehand. They would bring them on the shows. Okay, get them on board. They already have, some movie experience. We're going to bring them back to television, spend a lot of money on them, and let's get them to go and do shows. And we saw that happen for a number of people, but then it changed. Now, network TV can't draw anything. They're using reality shows even more. And anything that's network doesn't fly. And cable, all the scripted series, they're not going to cable because of an eroding market. They're going to Netflix. And so there are a handful of stars that are able to go and make themselves, relevant now, moving over to streaming, but then that's it. It's like, what are you going to do? My thing is, you want somebody that's on this, still it's a matter, I think you want somebody that's on the way up, that's relevant, that's hot now, and not somebody that was hot, and then you have to go and pay for what they were as opposed to who they are now.
I mean, what you just said makes me think of I forget his name, but he got a bunch of news stories. The guy who was the cranberry drink.
The Mad Dog, Fleetwood Mac, right?
Yeah, Ocean Spray riding down the street on his skateboard. Like, what talent does he have? Nothing. But he might be an influencer. No, I'm serious. No, but
right.
But he could now be an influencer. Ocean Spray delivered him a beautiful new red pickup truck, a year's supply of Ocean Spray. And, that did well for both of them. So I think there will be an erosion of talent as far as like people getting paid to do things. But I think it remains to be seen. I would bet on more and more folks that, are popular but not talented are going to, have influence, in the world.
Not to mention, there was a part that I mentioned where Fleetwood Mac, because of the song being put underneath the soundtrack of that, the song went up to number 22, I think it was, on a Billboard chart. It got back up into the Billboard charts again, research, and I think it was 300 million downloads in the last 3 weeks of all their music, and the entire catalog of Fleetwood Mac being sought out again by millennials and Gen Xers. That's incredible. You can't pay for good publicity like that.
No, you definitely can't. That went viral, and the fact that Stevie and the other they all did their own version of it. It was fascinating and fun to watch from the sidelines.
Oh, Mick Fleetwood. I mean, gee, yeah, Stevie Nicks and all those. Man, they're happy. They could probably go back on tour if it wasn't for pandemic. I mean, it's amazing what that does, and also worldwide acclaim because it brought them back. And it was just this little video that did everything. And TikTok, then I see they are milking that right now. They put out their own advertising to push that right there, and smart because it's amazing what draws the attention of your layman viewer. And that's the secret of what a PR firm wants. They want to know what is that one thing that's going to blow up and make your client famous.
Yeah, and it also showed you the speed at which we have to work sometimes. I mean, we definitely do that. And I know we're going to talk about it later on the crisis management side.
Yes.
We have to go along the news cycle. But the same thing with something that's going viral, it's not wait till Monday morning for me to be able to capitalize on that. It's Saturday night. It just happened. Let's jump right on that, get the team together, and use another digital disruptor, Slack, to get everyone together and jump on that idea and capitalize on in whichever way possible, because here today, gone tomorrow.
So you made mention of crisis management. We're going to talk about that now. I want to go and transition into that. And here, who else better than your team to talk about this? Because really, it's just, it's fascinating when I read about this. And again, I do want to put this in the best possible way possible. I want to just make this point first to you and your partner, Judah Engelmeyer. Fearless to go ahead and say, oh, why would you go ahead and represent certain clients? It doesn't matter. Business is business. And if you're able to go and do the best for a client, it's just like a lawyer. I mean, you're going in there and you're fighting hard for for what's out there. And if it's against the grain, it might be not what people are in favor of, but that doesn't matter. It's business is still business at the end of the day. So your firm has handled your share of crisis management clients. In 2018, Harvey Weinstein reached out to Judah Engelmeyer, your firm's president, to speak for him following the April 3rd decision of another crisis firm, Citric & Company, that was cutting ties with the embattled movie mogul. Without asking about any details, I don't want to know anything about the client and what your relationship and what you did for him. I really want to ask more about what your firm learned about this level of client representation by managing a once legendary figure being disowned by Hollywood, essentially.
Well, I have to say that, like Judah, my partner, the president of, Herald PR, I have the utmost respect and admiration for him because he's always on the front lines of all of our crisis work. Yes, we had the embattled movie producer, and it was certainly in the news, but, this was not Judah's first rodeo. He's worked on, other big name celebrity type, crisis work and strategic communications work. And, the best work that he does, you don't even hear about, so we can't talk about. What we learned is that, things are, someone who's married to my beautiful wife and, the son of my mother, and I have a lovely sister. We learned that a lot of things that men should believe, culturally changed and moved in the right direction with the movement. But again, we, like you said, we work with a lot of attorneys. We work with a lot of white collar criminal defense attorneys. We have a job to do, and we have to remain objective and work both sides and see both sides, because, and that's the number one thing that I learned personally is that, that the media moves fast and, and there's a lot of clickbait stories. Unfortunately, the media seems to be more and more subjective these days, especially with the polarization of our nation and the upcoming election. But I definitely learned that, staying on the middle line and looking to both sides and two sides of a story is exceptionally important.
And the other thing I got to make mention of, and I grew up to be a journalist myself, and I did get to work in newspapers, and I worked in TV news and all. And I just say, from the time I came in, back in the mid '90s, out of college and coming in now, I just have a discontent and a shame for how media is portrayed now, for what they do now, the business that's done now for clickbait, and because of the failure of the establishment to not be able to go ahead and do the due diligence to keep compelling content and to make it where you embrace digital media and transition over as you should have done beforehand, but you came in too late. Shame on you. And another digital outlets that could have done the right thing, gotten their prominence, and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and do the right thing and be objective. No. Then you decide, okay, we're not going to do that either. We're also going to go clickbait. We're just going to go ahead and be salacious and tabloidistic. I mean, it feels like Inside Edition is a much more reputable, and National Enquirer feels like a more reputable publication than all the mainstream media combined right now these days. I can only imagine the kind of fight that Judah and yourself would have had fighting against, it's again, they want to make it a losing battle because they're in the can. They're in the bed of whoever one side of the argument is. They're never looking at on both sides.
Not with the producer, but with other cases, we've had evidence that proves, the side of our client very clearly. But if it's not going to be popular and it's not going to be clickbait, it doesn't matter. And you're talking, upper echelons of national and local newspapers. It just doesn't matter because they need to follow, where we're moving towards. And again, I don't like to, we're in the business of working with journalists, and I have many, many, many journalists that are my dear friends and producers, and I.
Oh, but it's not their fault. Those journalists, it's not necessarily their fault. It's the producers and the publishers that are doing that. They're also being told by somebody else high above them about what they need to do. So I don't want to put the blame on the entire industry. I'm just disappointed, completely disappointed.
But I've seen it on the, and I maybe shouldn't be sharing this, but I've seen it. I've seen journalists who are friends. I ask them if I can take them out for a cup of coffee, not even to pitch a story, and they will not let me buy them a cup of coffee. They buy their own, I buy my own, and we have a nice conversation, and we're just friends because they don't want to be influenced. And on the other flip side, I've seen journalists where we pitch them a story and we're talking about it from some reputable publications, and they send us back, oh, hey, it's going to be a $700 invoice if you would like me to do this story. And it's a sad state of media, in my opinion.
And now I want to also make mention, we've already talked to, there were a couple other clients you've represented. So Food Channel star, Food Network stars Paula Deen, and one of the Real Housewives, Luann de Lesseps, also part of those that you have worked in terms of crisis management. I want to make that point across before I get to asking about that a little bit. One of the stories that I'm sure, and which you do not represent, but I'm sure you were all over looking at what the story was with Ellen DeGeneres, because that was a bombshell this year that just shook up Hollywood. And obviously the pandemic did not help her at all. Listen, I think Ellen DeGeneres at the time, and I think just the corruption of the industry itself, Hollywood just does something to you. You're growing up and going into this. Like, I just think that she's gone through a lot. I'm going to try to give benefit of the doubt to her, but talk about a case of crisis management to analyze. I could see that as an example that you guys would look at and just see how would you handle it yourselves. But for some context, I want to bring up the story so everybody knows, and I want to be as contextual and as objective as possible. There were accusations over the summer this year that the Hollywood Reporter described, quote, she fostered a toxic environment on the set of her top-rated eponymous talk show, which she's had for 20 years. A July BuzzFeed investigation detailed claims of intimidation, racism, and sexism levied by current and former employees of The Ellen Show. And it was the most damaging in a series of reports that painted a dark portrait of the host once considered America's sweetheart. Parent company Warner Media launched an investigation that led to the ouster of 3 top producers and additional benefits for staffers, including some time paid off. PR gurus said that the I Stand By Ellen movement, hashtag I Stand By Ellen, which seems to have been started by her wife, Portia de Rossi, appeared with her in the 2020 Super Bowl ad for Amazon Alexa, had all the designs of a coordinated effort. Now, before I get into that, I want to just make this point. With Ellen DeGeneres, she comes back to TV, and, first of all, the way she was treating her staff during the pandemic, having a private crew go to her Malibu home, she wouldn't even trust her own staff that's been working with her for a number of years to go work with her. Only the producers, which kept a barrier, like a moat, in front of everybody else that could go and communicate with her. And then she comes back, makes a quick joke about it, doesn't really address the situation, and just blows it off. Just out of curiosity, when you look at what that is right there, how do you perceive just an overall view of what the Ellen DeGeneres deal was and how you look at it from your perspective?
So I'll take off my crisis management hat for a minute, and I'll put my human being or, regular Joe hat on. And I'll say that my old man, my wonderful dad always raised me to say that it's the janitor in the building, it's the maid in the hotel, it's the doorman of a building. They have the keys to everything. And if you're kind to them and you're kind to the little people is the wrong word, but forgive me for that, that usage of that term. But if you're kind to the regular everyday person and up, that's how you get by in the world, and that's how you should be. And again, we should all be that way by default. So, I think, mistreating staff, especially during the pandemic, we did our very best to not fire anyone, I cut a lot of, corners on other things and did things to keep folks on. And I believe very much in a good culture and in caring about your staff. So as a human being, I don't like hearing things like that, but as a then crisis manager hat back on, I think that, again, stay on the middle line. And, I think that with the salacious media environment that we're in and the celebrity and brand that is Ellen, it's very easy for them to, for a story to leak and, for accusations to get out there and for her to be judged in the court of public opinion prior to anything being substantiated, as we've seen in many instances. But, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a coordinated effort, to turn this around as best as possible. But it also seems like the media went after her pretty hard.
All right. So Judah Engelmeyer, your partner, he talked to Hollywood Reporter about the story here. He says, quote, and he really same sentiments you're saying here, quote, what about the people who deal with her every single day? Her producer, her manager, the coffee delivery guy in the office. It's about the people who get to see things that the public doesn't get to see. I'm very critical on how the media establishment resorts to clickbait rather than objective content, and that is derived from the showbiz media. That's what I'm saying. So now, again, we mentioned that you worked crisis work for stars like Paul Dean, Luann de Lesseps, and Harvey Weinstein. So the thing is, it's a struggle that PR firms have to fight, two battles from not only the accusers, but the media that elevates the narrative. And I can just imagine, for something like a Hollywood Reporter or one of these industry rags, which have very deep ties, and they're also under deregulation of the SEC, you have all these publications under one roof. I just saw Billboard and Rolling Stone are now under the same company. The idea is that Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline are almost within the same companies. But the thing is, for something like this to go ahead and make it all the way to the top, to get this kind of expose out there, when you think these publications would want to protect these people because of their relationships, to let it go that far, and then you have to come in as a PR firm that might be representing a client, the magnitude of how far they want to take this, if they're willing to go ahead, and it's an expense to them to sacrifice somebody out like that. Talk about the struggle that goes with that, because obviously that tells you how far they're willing to go.
I mean, I must say that I'm not in the shoes of an editor in chief or a producer or booking manager. So I don't know, what their decisions are with that. I'm sure that, no one's knocking on your door if they're not suspicious, but I definitely, like I said earlier, think that if you have a salacious story about a celebrity and you can conduct a takedown and get, look at I don't want to get into politics, but I will. Look at the New York Post with the Hunter Biden thing. Obviously, timing, it was a hit piece, et cetera, et cetera. But it went everywhere, so much so that, that it got, controlled by Twitter and Facebook, and, and now we see that. So I don't think that you can just carte blanche, unless you're one of the rags, really publish anything that's, false or unverified. I think there's, fact checkers and people verifying things. But I definitely think that some liberties are taken at times. But to answer your question more directly, I think it's a tough decision, because if you're tied to Hollywood and you're tied to a star like that, or one of the talk show hosts, you exchange favors. You're at the pre-pandemic, you're at the holiday, the Hollywood parties together, on the red carpet together. It's a tough decision to make to cross that line, but I would say that there was probably something there.
And it's hard to be the one that it might have to be a disruptor, but then you have to go back after all this is said and done. And then there's still industry functions and networking that you still want to do in order to bring on new clients. And then it's a matter of, well, it's a tough place to be in. And like you said, when it comes to the New York Post story, I mean, regardless of what people think about it, the censorship is what I have a problem with. And now we know that the fact is that there are other reasons underlying as to why the censorship, because it's not just censorship for censorship. It's being done because we're seeing, and just like in the story with the Degeneres and the people that probably work with her, or the studios that try to connect with the Hollywood Reporter or other publications like that, there's some other underlying motives that we're not going to know about. Ulterior motives, if you will. We don't know why. But if they come to light, God forbid what happens if people come to light and they find out what happens, because that kind of scandal, people are not going to come back from, and that's something that will shock the entertainment world if it happens. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely, there's definitely a layer of unseen that the public doesn't see.
What they don't want you to know. They always talk about that, right? So it's like, sorry, I'm a National Choir type of guy. It's like I want to know. Just like the old days, right? In a recent interview in my program here, I talked to a black media producer / artist / entrepreneur, and he was the owner of APRT Media, currently owner, Mwinza Kasire. Now, I want to ask you a question I asked about him, about the media and entertainment industry to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to ask you the same question I asked him. BusinessCommunity.com recently wrote, now more than ever, businesses of all sizes are investing time and energy into diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and denouncing racism. And many are paving the way for deeper acceptance and change. Businesses who will embrace change and inclusion as part of their corporate culture will often create smart business strategies, boost their financial performance, outperform less diverse peers on profitability, and make their employees feel valued and included. So 2/3 of job seekers now consider workplace diversity an important factor when considering employment opportunities, and consumers are paying attention to diversity in communications too. So I wanted to get your overall take on DEI and the media, your thoughts, the changes happening right now, because obviously, just seeing where we have that some of the issues that PR might bring up is part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's something that's an underlying factor as to why some of the clients you brought on board, that's why this is brought out. And then now we have performative allyship as another part of this. So take me your take about the EI, how it's dealt with right now, causing the effect of what you need to do for crisis management and even for your own team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're moving in the right direction. As I said before, with the Me Too movement, I think that it's I don't know why it took us so long to have this aha moment. I also, I am, even though my name is Warren Cohn, my mom is from Lima, Peru, and she's an immigrant. I'm a Latino. And so I definitely believe that, if my mom wasn't given the chance to come here and go to school and get, her first jobs, and before she had a green card, I wouldn't be here today myself. So I think that, that we're moving in the right direction, and we should have been moving in this direction a long time ago. And I'm happy to see that, many of the award ceremonies are moving in that direction. It's not just you have to watch BET to see, the honors of African-American leads and both male and female or supporting actresses and actors in films. I think that the media is moving in the right direction. I am concerned with the polarity of our nation in not respecting that, but I think that the media has brought it to light, and I think that we're moving in a good direction as far as that goes. And I think that every company should do their best to hire people based on merit, and that means everybody, and that.
Yeah, most important when it comes to DEI, it's always merit and performance. It's not checking the boxes. I wouldn't want it that way, and that's just where it comes down to. Now, I mentioned influencer marketing. We started off the interview with that. We're going to come back to that because I think it ties into what goes on with DEI as well. Now, PR Week recently wrote, and I can only get this part because the paywall is up, these bastards. Okay, thank you, PR Week. Why don't you go and let us, once in a while, have a free article, huh? Throw a bone, huh?
With all the platforms, how could you possibly pay for a login for each one?
I know exactly. But again, everybody's want a paywall, paywall, paywall. Yeah, like guys, I'm not going to go back to you if you're going to keep doing that, okay? But at least I'll take what your headline and your subheader is.
Yeah, yeah. Sell
So
your ad.
Pierre, oh,
Yeah.
so they recently wrote that more than half, and I couldn't find out where they were quoting this from, but I guess that's all they wanted. More than half, 55% of marketers are anxious about working with social media influencers who are vocal about social and political issues. Celebrities, we already know that's an issue right now, and they're doing. Listen, from them doing John Lennon's Imagine to being naked to make people go vote because of naked ballots and all this kind of stuff, right? So with that, influencer marketing has swooped in and has become the dominant marketing strategy of 2020, given the increase of political messaging in this election cycle that we're going through. Do you see any kind of exhaustion? And that's why firms are wanting to work with more influencers. Is that, again, that's where I think the mask is off on celebrities. Their politics, we don't want to know about your politics. Act, sing for us. Please do not do anything else. You know, we love you for that. Why are you going to come in here and, alienate half your audience? That's what you're going to do. So influencers don't give us that, hopefully, if they're smart enough. What do you say?
I say that I've seen a lot of influencers who are doing that, and who are leaning in that direction. I think it's become the very popular thing to do. The media is certainly leaning in that direction, and it seems like it's, everyone is, I understand that the population is polarized and voters, there are Trump voters and there's Biden voters.
Yeah.
And, some Biden voters are just anti-Trump voters. I am one of those that believe that I am absolutely expletive exhausted by this. I turned on, Red Zone to watch football on Sunday. I'm sadly a Jets fan. You guys beat us very handily. We got a donut last week. So I watch a Red Zone instead of the Jets now because it's painful. But next to the score where it says third down, it now says don't forget to vote. On the field it says don't forget to vote. Everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, I am absolutely and utterly exhausted. I said to my wife this morning, it's a week from now. It'll be. I know it won't be over. That's naive, but at least the messaging will be over. I don't think people will be, because of the polarity of this and because of who Trump is and the disgust that people have with him. I think that people in Hollywood and certain influencers will not be stained by having taken a stand. But me as an individual, I'm done. I'm fed up. I don't need it. As the quote said, sing, dance, act, show us your talent. I don't need to, voting is private. Endorsements are private. Endorsements are for other elected officials, for unions, and for PACs and other organizations. The fact that everyone's active, I think, I remember the MTV, Get Out the Vote campaign as I was growing up, and P. Diddy.
Rock the vote, yeah.
That was more concentrated effort or smaller, and it was that was to gain interest in the tweens and teens who were registering. But now it's everywhere. You can't. It's unavoidable, and I just want to put on music in my car that I can control and not be bothered because I know that the election's a week from now.
I mean, I look at TikTok videos and I'll see some of the stars like a Charlie D'Amelio, who's the biggest thing in the world right now on that space with the Black Lives Matter fist. Like, okay, listen, God bless you for wanting to go ahead and, put that out there. But I have to feel at 16 years old, you're being pressured to do that. And second, are you even well read to really know what's going on? Because you don't live the life of it. It's like, who's kind of telling you that you feel like you need to go and do something like this? And that whole thought of like, you don't listen, Johnny Carson never talked politics. I know it sounds like an old person saying that, but it's true. You just have people that the actors of old, they never did this. We didn't put our politics out there like that. You might have a comment here and there, but really it doesn't make a difference because you're not going to sway. Like, I mean, here's the thing too. For as many celebrities that are coming out now, speaking for one side, for what it is, okay, is that going to work? Last time they tried it, it didn't work. The thing is, will the institutional, will the people that are the true in power, are they going to realize what they've been doing for years and years, it doesn't work because we have a digital disruption. Again, celebrities don't have the kind of star power they had before. And thinking you're going to put them out there, being forced in some cases or being basically gunned to the head, you need to go get naked, Sarah Silverman, and go speak your mind. Okay, fine. But is that going to help you out in the long run? You're basically just being used as bait because you might not be doing anything else with your career, but it's like, well, I need to do this because maybe I'll get another paycheck sometime. It's like, that's where I come from with all this. And I'm saying to myself, there's so much control. You can't even just have your career and enjoy it. No, there's so many different things that will hold you down, or you can basically be, virtually blackmailed so that you have to have a stand. You have to say this or that. You have to fall in line with the rest of your ilk in your profession just to go and keep working. And you can't even get to enjoy what you're doing. So like you're brought into it, you enjoy it, and then all of a sudden you're like stuck in this purgatory of being able to be famous, but then you can't be famous and without having to go ahead and be pushed around.
I'm voting for Kanye.
Hey, you got some good stuff going on right there. I like what he was saying on Joe Rogan, man. I do.
He's interesting. Obviously, he's a special. He's a character, and I respect his career. Career. I think I respect celebrities who put out an album, do what they do, act, and then they go home and they live a regular life, or they live in Wyoming or wherever, and they try to live as normal as possible, and they stay on the sidelines. I agree completely that they are being made to choose a side now, and that it doesn't need to. I don't think anything's going back in the can. I think we're only going to see this moving forward more and more, but I don't think that they need to opine on this, and the fact that they think that they need to, and also with income inequality, I've spoken to a lot of young folks. We have interns. I'm very close with. I went to Tulane in New Orleans, and the on campus folks, and I was a mentor to some students last year. With income inequality, like, do I want someone who has $500 million from their acting career telling me what to do? How do they relate with me? How do they relate with a young person? There's no, like, how does them telling me to vote get me a job after college? How does that how does it help me in other ways? And I've heard that from many young folks. Now that I have gray hairs, I can say that. And it's fascinating to see that. And I think that speaks to, to what you're saying, as far as them jumping in and choosing a side and putting their face or their other parts, out there. Yeah.
And I just think that I also see that there are certain people that are trying to go ahead and speak for themselves where, you see like Ice Cube or 50 Cent, and then 50 Cent has to take back what he said because Chelsea Handler, who probably has some kind of blackmail on him, which is why she was the one that spoke out to make him to change his tune, sing a different tune, get back in line. That's why she did what she did. It's like, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, I like the idea of being, having influencing, but then also I would want more people, as you're listening to this program, if you're an aspiring influencer, if you're an aspiring actor, actress, or whatever, to keep the autonomy for yourself. Do not be controlled by these people that think you have your best interests. You have to keep your own best interests, and you have to fight back, and you have to push back at every turn and be confident of your craft, because that's what's going to keep you working. That's all there is to it. Before we wrap things up, I want to go ahead and direct people to your website, heraldpr.com. And I see that you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, Instagram. And real quickly, talk to our listeners about what you do and how people can get involved and really get engaged. They want to go have you on as a client after they've heard you.
Yeah, well, I first have to say, if I may, that I agree with you across the board, but 50's line was still, was priceless. That I don't want to be 20 Cent. I love that.
Well, because they're not going to remember he took it back. They're going to remember he said 50 cents, 20 cents. Right.
So again, we do public and media relations. We do influencer marketing, marketing, branding, web development, and strategic and crisis communications. And I, graciously thank you for having me on today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for being so candid and being open to what we talked about. I just think it's great. And also, you're based in New York and New Orleans. Are you in New York right now?
I'm currently working at WFH, man, from New Jersey. My house in New Jersey with my kids barged in, but I luckily locked the door. which sometimes works. But yeah, we're based in Midtown Manhattan. We're based on Poydras and St. Charles in New Orleans, and we're soon to open up an office, if that's even a thing, in 2021 in South Florida near you.
Oh, wow. Very nice. What part of South Florida are you looking at?
We're looking at Boca or Miami, but probably Boca, so we can be in the midst of a lot of different things.
Hey, let me know when you make it. I'd love to go and take a visit. Hopefully when all this is all said and done, right?
Yeah, please. And if I spoke to Judah earlier and I told him what I was doing, but he said if you'd ever like to have him on, I'm not trying to pitch you, but he's
PR guy pitching.
He could go deeper. The truth is I'm not on the front lines too often anymore, but he could talk real deep about all the crisis stuff. Although he would probably be more evasive than me.
Sure. Well, that's how he does so good in PR, right? That's what he has to do.
That's why he's
let's look at that. We'll follow up on that. Warren Cohn, again, CEO and founder of Herald PR. Thanks for being with us on the Broadcasters Podcast. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.